Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tuesday, September 28th, Ross Valley School District Board of Trustees regular meeting. It is currently, don't have my clock on, it is currently 7:01 p.m. and I will call our meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Ross Valley Board of Trustees. Welcome, everybody. As we do, we start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. And this month, I just had a very quick reflection on the Pledge of Allegiance. As I mentioned last time, I see the Pledge of Allegiance as a time to take and pause and think about our social contract with each other, which is a part of our democracy, and democracy as a democratic process, not just a democracy as a noun. And part of that process is making a commitment to each other and to participate in our democratic process. And these meetings are part of that whole process. It's how we all work together and come together and get things done for our kids and for our community. So I just want to appreciate all of you in the working together for our students. So in appreciation of all the work that we do together, united, for all the different schools and all of the different families in our community, I would welcome you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. And on three. 1, 2, 3. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right. Next, we will adopt, or I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda and the time allocations. But before we do that, want to pause and see if any of the trustees have any amendments or changes to the agenda or the times, if there's anything that's a proposed amendment. If not, we can go ahead and entertain a motion.
And oh, excuse me, and then also to note that Wesley is unable to be with us tonight as he has a work commitment that is
great.
So he's unable to be with us.
Great. So we have 4 trustees here tonight: Shelley, Marie, Rachel, and Ryan.
And I make a motion to adopt the agenda and time allocation.
I'll second it, Rachel.
Okay, motion and a second, and we'll take a vote. Marie?
Aye.
And Rachel?
Aye.
Ryan?
Aye.
Shelley? Aye. All right, now we will move on with our agenda that we've all agreed to. So we've got in our communication section, we have public comments regarding items that are on and not on the agenda. And we do have a public comment in that, and it's been posted, and want to just check and make sure all of the trustees have had a chance to speak up if for some reason they weren't able to see that. We don't have to say aye, we've seen it, but this is the moment in case somebody needs to acknowledge that they haven't seen it. I'm hearing nothing, so we'll go ahead and keep moving. Board announcements. Are there any board announcements from any of the board members? Not hearing any.
No.
Nope. Okay. So I've got one quick board announcement. Marcy and I attended the it was a town council, it was a joint town council planning commission meeting for the town of Fairfax on the housing element update. And we attended this meeting because the Fairfax housing element has includes in it a consideration of the property behind White Hill. And so just wanted to let people know that that process is taking place, that Marcy and I had attended that meeting. We'll be attending other meetings. And also to clarify, in case anyone else in the public or any of the board members had also been in that meeting, that we have been contacted by the town about the property behind White Hill School, the vacant property behind White Hill School. But we've not had any formal meetings with the town at this point. We've been exchanging communication with them, and we'll continue to have communication with them as they move forward in that housing update. But just it was on a list of what are called opportunity sites, which the town evaluates for potential housing opportunities. So we look forward to continued conversations with the town, but just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that that we're still trying to get in touch with them and have ongoing conversations. Marcy, I don't know if you wanted to say anything else about that.
No, I think you covered it, Shelley. It was just, well, I'll say it was an interesting meeting though to attend. I haven't attended one before. And so this seems like it's kind of a process that's been going on for a little bit of time, just based on the public comments that people did have related to the considerations that the town is making around affordable housing and possible sites. So we don't know any, as Shelley mentioned, any details yet. They've just reached out to ask us if we'd be willing to have a meeting, but that's all we know.
Yeah.
There's been no communications as to content or time or day of meetings. So we'll keep you all updated.
Yep, we'll keep you updated as we go forward. So that's all the board announcements I have. Anything else? All right, correspondence and communication to the board. I believe we have a couple of items listed there. Again, they've been posted, publicly posted, and want to make sure that we pause for a moment in case any board members were not able to read those. So this will be nice. Next time we're all going to be in person, we can all just shake our heads for acknowledgement. I have to wait and pause and see if anybody pipes up. All right, so hearing none, we'll go ahead and continue to move on into the heart of our meeting in the presentation and action items. So the first one that we have up is a presentation on the racial equity update and discussion.
All right, great, thank you. And just to check in, Julie, are you going to share your screen with this item? We have a slide deck that we'll be going through tonight.
Yes, I was planning on sharing, but I just click share and it doesn't look the way it normally looks. I'm on a different computer.
Okay.
So it might be better if you shared it,
All right, so
if you have it pulled up.
Yep, I can do that. All right. So what you're viewing then, everybody, is the PowerPoint PDF version, which is the attachment on the board agenda. But I think everybody, you can see the item.
Marcy, do you want me to, I can drop off and log on to a different computer if you
That's
want.
okay. I was able to make it a little larger. Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you do view full screen, Marcy, it might come up full screen.
How do I do that?
Right next to edit where it says view, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, you should be able to get to full screen.
Nope, down lower. There you go.
There, beautiful.
Yay, hey, yay.
All right, we did it. Thanks for your help, everybody.
Teamwork.
Okay, all righty. So just really happy to be here tonight to provide our racial equity update to you all and to many members of our public who are viewing from home. And tonight in our presentation, we have Judith Berry-Goujon, principal of Brookside School, Matt Catanzari, principal of Whitehill, Julia Wolcott, director of curriculum and instruction, and myself. And just as you all know, as a district, we are focused on racial equity. Research and data show that when schools focus on racial equity, improvements are seen for all groups of children. We've developed and continue to refine a framework, which is we call our Racial Equity Action Plan. And we have identified tools, actions, and resources that reflect and highlight our values and reinforce systems so that all of our students are able to reach their full potential. And we have 3 district priorities this school year. Our first one is continue our racial equity work with a focus on what gets us closer to the classroom. That's kind of our mantra this year, is what gets us closer to the classroom. Focusing on our classrooms, our students, is critical so that our students and families are able to feel the impact of our efforts and so that we can identify what shifts continue to be needed. Our other 2 priorities this year are MTSS, or multi-tiered system of support, and health and safety. All three priorities are interconnected through an equity lens, and all of us from our district office to the school sites are focusing on these same priorities. So all of our arrows are aligned. We're moving all in the same direction with a goal of focusing on every single one of our Ross Valley students and doing so through an equity lens. And everything that we're doing is focusing on the classroom because we know that's where our students are and what will make the most difference to them in their education in Ross Valley. And we're very happy that this year we are working with our new equity consultant, Deborah McKnight. And with Deborah's background as an educator, first and foremost, special educator. She worked for 8 years as the director of special ed in the San Francisco Unified School District. And also with her expertise in working with small and large organizations across private and public sectors, we're able to make the connections between our previous 4 years of equity work rather than forging a whole new path, and to get our work, as we've talked about, more focused on action and again, closer to the classroom. We've already benefited from Deborah's facilitation and coaching that she's provided to the Ross Valley School District in the 2 months since she started with us. And we look forward to the board having the opportunity to meet Deborah in the future. So once we return to our in-person board meetings, we'll be looking forward to having Deborah with us. And there's a picture of her because we weren't able to have her with us tonight. So we wanted everybody to be able to have kind of a face with the name and be able to have some recognition when we do meet her. Of course, those of us who've been working in the school district have met Deborah and worked with her a couple of times already. This slide shows our equity work launch for the school year. And what we've listed here are district-wide examples of what we've accomplished so far and or what we're planning to do in the first 3 months of the school year. In August, we kicked off our work with Deborah at our administrator back to school meetings and also at our certificated and classified professional development days in the middle of August. And racial equity has been a topic at every single site staff meeting. Our parent guardian team has had the opportunity to meet and work with Deborah, and we look forward to our first equity task force meeting on October 20th. And that'll be with members of our staff who are on the equity task force, our parents, as well as Shelley, who is our trustee representative in the district equity work. And then of course, any members of the public would be able to attend that meeting if they wish, but our focus is going to be on our work with our parent equity task force to get and review what you're going to see tonight. So this is kind of a preview of the work that's coming. All of our actions so far are part of our racial equity action plan, which we've broken down into trimesters. And we'll be discussing those later tonight in the presentation. All right, I'll turn it over to Julia.
All right, thank you, Marcy. So for the next portion of this slideshow, we're going to be talking about basically the results of last spring's listening sessions. And so first, I want to acknowledge the parents and guardians from our Parent Guardian Equity Task Force who really put these listening sessions together, along with help from Dr. Erica Brown, the EPIC education trainer with whom we were working, and Marcy and myself. And as you can see, we had several sessions at the middle school, and big thanks as well to Maria Lubomirsky, who helped with running those. And then we had a session in April for our parents, and that was for any parents who'd like to join. And when they joined, there was some work that we did together as a whole group, and then they went into affinity groups, and those affinity groups were facilitated by parent members of the task force. And then we did a Spanish language one with our DLAC as well. And we're still looking forward to I'm actually working with Deborah now to get a date for a listening session for our BIPOC staff. But through this, and then we also had a portal with a Google form that parents could complete and a few other mechanisms for getting feedback from parents. And so we spent a lot of time just gathering qualitative feedback and then sifting through that feedback and bringing some themes forward. So what we're going to do this evening is I'm going to show you some of the data, and the data is in the form of the the stories that came from parents and that came from kids. And again, I want to make sure I'm taking the time to really thank all of the parents and all of the kids who were willing to share their stories. It's a very vulnerable thing to do. It takes a lot of bravery. I think that when parents are talking about any harm or hurt that their children are experiencing, that's a difficult thing to do, particularly in a public arena. So huge, huge thank you to all those who were a part of this work. So you're going to see some feedback, the words and voices of our parents, and in a couple of cases, our kids, and then we'll talk about the themes that we were able to develop from that feedback. So Marcy, you could move to the next slide. And I'm not going to read these. I'm just going to pause here and let everyone read them for themselves, sort of with those parent and student voices in your head. Marcy, I think you can go to the next slide. So those were some of the comments that were made. There were others as well, but one of the things that we found collectively was that children in the Ross Valley School District do experience racism, bias, and othering within our schools. And so this is a part of their lived experience and something that we absolutely need to be paying attention to. And so again, in the parent voices here. And so our next theme is that there is a need for the Ross Valley School District to do more, that Ross Valley School District families shared challenges they experienced with the school curriculum, with staff proficiency, with regards to race and racism, and the school environment when it comes to race and equity. And we know that we need to do more. And as Marcy said, that is our focus this year, and it's all throughout our action plan that you'll be seeing in a few moments. So the third theme, we need to do more as parents and community members. Ross Valley School District families have experienced racism, bias, and othering from students, parents, and other community members. And so recognizing that this is an issue within our schools and within our school community, and that we really need to join together in partnership when we are trying to address these issues. And finally, advancing equity in this community also helps white kids to be successful. Schools need to make it a priority to hire a more diverse teaching and leadership force that accurately represents broader society. And I think this is something that we all know. We absolutely want to create more diversity within our staff. And we know that's good for every kid. And there are abundant studies that back that up. That talk about the power of white students learning from people of color, teachers of color. And then I wanted to just take a moment to bring us back to our Ross Valley School District Racial Equity Mission Statement. This was the statement that was written in partnership with our Parent Guardian Task Force. And I'm going to just take a moment to read it. The Ross Valley School District is committed to creating a safe, equitable, and inclusive learning environment in which all students feel a sense of belonging, are respected and celebrated for their individual differences, and are empowered to thrive socially, emotionally, and academically. We are equally committed to building the leaders of tomorrow who will combat racism and promote equity throughout their lives. Ross Valley School District parents, guardians, staff, students, and board trustees in partnership will create policies to disrupt systemic racism and prioritize equity in our organizational structures, curriculum, and instructional practices. We will do this by actively engaging, listening, and responding to the voices and needs of our marginalized students, families, and staff, and working to engage in anti-racist actions that build a vibrant, inclusive learning community. And I think it's really important to kind of sit with this statement after reading and listening in our heads to the voices of parents and in some cases of students who are describing the experiences that they're having in Ross Valley. And I'll pause here for a moment before we move forward and start kind of unveiling our action plan to see if there's any comments or thoughts from the board.
It's Rachel. I just really wanted to say thank you to the people who were willing to share these things. I know you already said this, Julia, but like reading some of these statements, it was really striking to me what these people were saying and the students. And so I think a thanks is definitely in order. And I just wanted to bring that up now. That's all.
Thank you. All right. And so, you know, we have our vision, our mission statement, and we absolutely know that we need to move forward and we need action. And so our racial equity action plan is kind of a framework for that action. We recognize that this is very much a working and ongoing document. Thus far, the action plan was created by our administrative staff. We got feedback from our Delight teacher leadership group. We've sent the plan to our parent group. We've gotten some feedback, but we haven't yet been able to really have time to talk about the plan with them. So we imagine more adjustments will be forthcoming once that takes place. But it's a really good starting place. As Marcy said, for each action, we're identifying the timeline for it, either as T1 of this year, meaning the first trimester of the year, T2, the middle of the year, or T3. Some actions are ongoing actions, and then there's a couple of actions that we think we likely won't get there during this year, but we wanted to leave them in the plan. And so Judith and Matt, our fabulous principals, are going to be presenting the action plan to you, starting with Judith.
Thank you, Julia. So I'm sure you will all agree that the themes from our listening sessions truly speak to the urgency of our equity work. And our leadership team is committed to our personal journeys about race, as we realize that this is a necessary step in developing our own ability as leaders of this work. Deborah is facilitating opportunities for us to engage and grow into instructional leaders who can support all members of our school communities in this necessary process. And we are all in agreement that the time for action is now. So we are going to be showing 6 slides that illustrate our plan. And for this first slide, I will explain the format of the plan to help you better understand how it's organized. Each slide has an identified anti-racist outcome up at the top with the overarching goals and the area of focus for the district. As an example, this one is professional development. And on the left in the blue box is where we captured the history of actions taken to date related to the goals at the top. Action items are listed and coded with the area of focus. For example, you can see on this slide, it says PD1, so professional development action 1. Action items are described and resources and the people are identified, and the timing of when we plan to take these actions is marked with for the trimester of when those actions will occur, such as T1, T2, T3. For each slide, Matt and I will choose an item from T1 to highlight this evening. So for this slide, I'm going to focus on action item PD3, providing training and support to the site and district admin on facilitating equity conversations and work. Principals have been facilitating conversations and working with staff for several years now. The difference with how we are doing this work now begins with having the focus time that we had last year to hold the listening sessions and have that opportunity to gather the tremendously important input of our BIPOC students and families. We used a lot of that input to work collaboratively together to develop this plan. These brave voices help to illustrate what needs to change in our schools and, of course, the urgency of these changes happening. With Deborah McKnight's assistance this year, we are going deeper with our own personal journeys and our understanding about racial equity. We're using Deborah's activities with us as a guide to the work we are doing with staff. We're working collaboratively as an administrative team to plan PD with staff. Our district and site PD time includes a focus on structured activities aligned with our goals, along with having the ongoing time to follow up to provide support to staff and ensure that the action items are happening in our classrooms. The activities we're engaging in ourselves and then leading as principals include a new component of introspective journal writing and talking about race with each other. It's really taking the work to a deeper level, personally and professionally. And the personal part is such a necessary step in this journey to be able to truly make a difference with students. We all see that this introspective process and ability to have conversations is needed for us to do this work. Do we want to hold questions to the end and I'll just talk about the next slide? Okay, let's move to the next one. For this slide, I will focus on C1, which is our equity book bundles. And last Wednesday during our district grade level team meeting, we had teacher leaders for each grade level introduce the equity book bundles. Teachers shared social justice standards from Learning for Justice, which is an organization founded by the Southern Poverty Law Center in 1991 with a focus to prevent the growth of hate by reducing prejudice. In the past 30 years, their work has grown to center on action and the action students and educators can take to realize change. They are a fantastic resource for teachers, and the social justice standards developed by this group are really easy to understand with clear grade level outcomes aligned with anchor standards, which include standards of identity, diversity, justice, and action. Teachers last Wednesday were introduced these standards for their respective grade levels and provided books with accompanying lesson plans that focus on grade level standards. The organized format for the lesson plan included conversation prompts and extensions. It's a format that may be useful for teachers beyond application for the lesson that goes with a particular book, because the format for the lessons were so well put together with lots of resources. On Wednesday, teachers led their peers through reading one of the books, actively participating in racial conversations about the book, and asking any questions they have about leading these lessons and discussions with their students. The conversations were rich and meaningful to support teachers at a range of levels for leading equity work. And they were also ensured by the administrators in the room that administrators are there to support them in this work in whatever way that they need. I also, I happen to be in the fourth, fifth grade meeting, and I saw a lot of collaborative conversation and sharing of ideas and willingness for those that maybe have gone further along with this work already, maybe last year or even the year before, we're doing lessons in their classrooms, offering that assistance to their peers, to their grade level peers. So there was also some time for sharing activities that teachers have done since the beginning of the school year. These grade level meetings are really invaluable that we're able to have because the specific collaboration with peers that are working at the same grade level is really invaluable. So teachers now have the action step to read one of the 4 books, lead their class in a conversation, and report back the experience by our next meeting in October. And then, of course, there will be the action step to continue to read the other books and do the lessons that go along with those books. For this side, I'm going to focus on SC3, implementing community circles and restorative practices. Many teachers have been using community circles and restorative practices prior to this school year, but some of the new steps we are taking include gathering important information about racial, cultural, and gender identification at parent intake conferences at the beginning of the school year. This information is really important to help raise awareness for how teachers are seeing and understanding each unique student. Teachers are finding that the community circles are a safe space for students to share and engage in conversations about their racial experiences. Community circles create opportunities for the ongoing social emotional instruction related to real experience students are having. They're often used as a format for students to discuss real experiences that they have during the course of a school day. Restorative practices, which include helping students grow in their understanding and acceptance of individual difference and needs as they resolve their conflicts. Though a lot of that happens through the community circles. And there are other ways that teachers facilitate dialogue between students. And I should say administrators as well, because the administrators in our district have been working for a long time on developing and refining our restorative practices.
Thank you, Judith. Any questions for Judith so far before we move on to Matt? Okay, all right. Matt, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you, Judith.
Thanks, Marcy, and thank you, Judith, for that awesome introduction to our action plan. So I'm going to be talking about academic achievement, and I'm going to be looking at AA2, which is align EL support across sites and develop program based on best practices in English language development, increase home language translation. An example of that are report cards and communications. One of the things that we are doing in the EL world that has been a change is all of our EL students have a caseworker now, and we believe that will best serve each student. Each teacher is creating goals similarly to what happens in a special ed program for those students, and the EL teachers will work towards those goals. Another thing that has shifted is that our students are not being pulled out of one of their elective classes. We think it's really important that they're able to experience their elective classes. Usually those are classes where they can learn some academic language that's important, but also have some fun. So our teachers push in to help those students with their goals. And they also see those students during their advisory classes at Whitehill to help with their goals. One new thing that we've started, and we actually had our first one today, and we're really excited about it. We started a new tradition where we're acknowledging our EL students that have been reclassified. And that's a huge equity piece. It's huge for us. And those students should be celebrated because they have done a lot of work to get where they are. And it opens up opportunities educationally for them beyond high school. So that's really exciting. So yeah, that's the academic achievement in T1. The next outcome is community stakeholder engagement. And we have a couple in trimester 1 there. And I'm going to focus on the CSE2, which is to diversify and expand on parent leadership groups to ensure representation of all families. A couple things noted there: embed equity work in all parent groups, provide multiple meeting options, and incorporate diversity, equity, and inclusion work into our site councils. And we've had a lot of conversations as an admin team about making sure that when we have things in the evenings and we recognize not all people can make those, make sure there's multiple opportunities for people to participate, but also make it a priority that all voices are represented in our site councils. They help advise us, they help do things at our sites, and we want as many voices to be heard and have a seat at the table. So that's an important piece, and our principals are working on making sure, and our parents are also working on making sure that all of our groups are represented on campus and in our parent leadership groups. So yeah, there's the T1 for community stakeholder engagement. And then our next one is systems and structures. And this is looking at more systemically. We don't have any T1s, but that doesn't mean we're not doing things. We have a couple that are ongoing, and ongoing as far as timing is concerned. These are things that have already taken place, and they're going to continue. All right. So I'm going to look at SS1, and that is expand recruitment through participation in job fairs, virtual and in person, advertising and recruiting sites. One of the things that I'm really proud of during our hiring process that we've started doing, and this is in the history portion of this slide, is we have more than one question in all of our interviews right now for certificated and classified staff, where we have equity focused questions on the interview panels. And I think that's a really important piece because during the interview process, we're not only interviewing candidates, but they're also interviewing us. And we're trying to figure out if they're a fit or a match for our district. And they're also doing the same thing. We want them to have long careers here. They want to have long careers wherever they land. But during that interview process, we make it really clear that this is a priority. So if this is something that you're not bought into, if this is something that you don't know how to answer, you're not going to be working for us. And I think that's a really important piece as we grow as a district and do what's best for our students. So that is ongoing, and that's something that I'm really proud of that we have taken on.
All right, and with that, that's the end of our slide deck this evening. Any questions, comments, anything anybody wants to discuss?
Could you talk a little bit about next steps in terms of getting feedback on this from board members, from the community, from the parent guardian task force? What's kind of the iterate evolution process for this plan?
And we have sent it, or Julie, go ahead. You can take that.
I was probably going to say the same thing you're going to say, which is that we've sent the plan to our parent guardian task force. And once we have a meeting with them, I imagine that will be a big part of that meeting, is soliciting feedback there. And, you know, as I said at the start, it's a working document and should be. You know, if you think about our LCAP, which is another document that's a little bit more massive, every year there's an annual update. And the thing that you do is you say, okay, did you do what you said you were going to do? And if you didn't, why didn't you? And what did you do instead? And, you know, so the accountability needs to be there. I also, and this is partly through the work with Deborah McKnight, have been really kind of landing on a place of let's not wait for perfect. Wait means never. And so we're stepping into the work as imperfect as it may be, and recognize that we could spend a whole year creating the perfect document, and that won't get us any closer to the classroom, which is our goal. Our goal is to impact our students in our classrooms. And so we're really trying to have actionable steps that are visible to our kids, visible to our families. And we welcome feedback, absolutely. I had one parent talk with me a little bit about just the kind of the human resources part and some shifts there. And I'm like, you're right. We really need to dive in at a much deeper level there. And we know it. So
Great.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Oh, yeah, that does answer the question. I'll see if there's anyone else have any thoughts, reflections, questions.
This is Ryan. This is remarkable. It's like it's very deep. There's a lot of thought going into it. There's a lot of consideration going into it. There's a lot of angles that are being considered. There are a lot of people that are affected, and there are a lot of people that have no idea what's going on. And then your statement about how you just got to accept that we're not going to be perfect, but we're going to get in the water anyway. And yeah, it might be cold, but we got to do it. And I applaud that approach, because to do nothing is unacceptable. And to unacknowledge it is ignorance. So I'm proud that this work is being done. And even the stuff that I see and read here is very thoughtful. And it also tells someone like me that I have a lot to consider, because I don't consider those things very often. And so it opens up my mind to say, hey, there's a lot here that I don't understand. And wow, look how deep it goes. So I applaud us for getting in the water, even though it might be cold. And I think it's you got a long way to go, but what a great journey. And I think it'll inform and bring people along at a pace that will collectively bring us up as a community faster and from the ground level up. So from the kid that's getting this education that's probably smarter than the parents by the time it comes home to discuss dinner, like it starts at that level and it encompasses everything. So I'm really proud to see this. It looks great.
Thank you.
I want to add something about the way you presented I think the plan is a very thorough plan. And the fact that you actually choose to only talk to us about one item on each page, it actually shows that this is complex. And that if you choose one, we could have also gone very quickly through the 35 action items and had gotten nothing. So I think this is part of that work, is that you won't be able to concentrate on all those items at the same time. It will be deep in one based on the group of either professionals or parents or students you are with. And I think even that dynamic is telling me that you are tackling this the right way, in a humble way. Like today we're going to talk about that. We're not going to cover everything. So I think this is, that talks to my heart about the way you are approaching it. The content matters to me, but also the way you're approaching it seems to be manageable and achievable. That's because we don't want to have that on the agenda and never do anything about it. So that's why it just make me think you're in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you.
I wanted to tear off, I think something Ryan mentioned that came also to mind is I really also appreciate the focus on what can we do to bring this to the classroom and have that be the priority and the forefront. And having said that, just reflecting on a little bit of what Ryan said is also the idea, as was done with the racial equity mission statement, where the board was added in, because I think we can play a role of making sure that this is not going to go away if we have some changes. So I definitely agree that the forefront needs to be, how does this show up in the classroom? But I also don't want to lose the potential of keeping it systemic and locked in, because I think as a board, that's our role, is making sure that this isn't an ad hoc thing that happens to be happening because Julia and Marcy are here, or that there are certain people who are leading this, but it might look different next year, if something changes, that we support it. We show our support for it. We are part of the learning process. So maybe there's, in addition to staff, there's board PD and onboarding that happens. There's board recruitment as part of the process, those kinds of things. And that we take tangible actions to make this locked in as part of the system, not just something we're going to be doing right now that might change. So that's my feeling, is how can we participate in supporting this rather than just verbalizing it in a meeting, so that it's durable and long lasting and sustainable. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I think that's important as well.
Yeah, I think one of the elements of our work with Deborah that's been really helpful is to focus on what kind of leaders are we as white leaders. We're, all of us in this space right now are all white. And so focusing on whether or not we are transformational and or are we instructional leaders. And like we did when Rick Bagley was with us, focusing on Hattie's work and what makes the most impact and difference in the classroom. And it's really being the instructional leader. Of course, we have to have a transformational aspect of the work that we're doing as we're creating, but we really need to be instructional in nature, because the instructional is what gets to students, is what really impacts students. And so I think, Shelley, as you talked about, we definitely do want to have and have plans for Deborah to be with us here at the board level. And if there's any elements to your own personal journeys, just as we're going on our own personal journeys through this as well, I'm happy to share. May have seen the email I sent over the weekend with some resources. And so we want to just be sure that we are doing the work here with the trustees as well as with every single one of ourselves and our employees too. And then really impacting what we're doing, because it's not just our students. We want to also be able to ensure that the working environment for all of our employees is we can attract, we can hire folks, but we need to be able to retain them also in our employment practices, to make sure that as we're hiring for a more diverse staff, that this is a place where they also feel comfortable and they want to be too. So it is our efforts are all around for our students, our families, and our staff in our whole RVSD community.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you so much. And we look forward to coming back at a future meeting.
All right. Yes, looking forward to that ongoing iterative process, and as things evolve, hearing some more. All right, let's move to the presentation D2, which is the update on the school's full return. And this is the fourth one this year. So let's let us know how things are going, if there's been any changes.
Yeah, every single meeting, we definitely have updates to give. And I think that's just what we've all become accustomed to and used to with COVID, as information and data are learned by our medical healthcare professionals. It allows them to update their guidance and the protocols that they're asking us to follow in schools. And with the goal, first and foremost, to ensure that our schools stay open and that our kids remain in school and have access to an in-school learning environment. So keeping their health and safety first and foremost for students and for our staff and families. So tonight we have Maria Lubomirsky, White Hill Assistant Principal, back with us again tonight. She was with us at the last board meeting. And then again tonight, has been a couple of meetings, but Peg Minicozy, Principal at Manor. And Maria is going to get us started tonight with some quarantine guidance updates.
Right, thank you. Marin Health and Human Services has released update quarantine guidance with the goal of keeping more children in school. So contact tracing will continue to be utilized, and parents and guardians of exposed students will be asked to monitor for symptoms instead of automatically going to quarantine or modified quarantine, which will now include before or aftercare programs. So that's the latest from them. The next slide. Based on the updated quarantine guidance that I just mentioned, Marin Health and Human Services has also developed a new decision tree for students and staff. They just keep us guessing every time with symptoms. Now, that's the left side of the slide, and it's applicable for students and staff regardless of vaccination status. Now, they also updated the decision tree for exposure in schools. That's the right side. And it's the updated tree for schools. The updated decision tree for schools contains protocols to follow both vaccinated and unvaccinated students all on one page. So just like the one on the left, it's always for vaccinated and unvaccinated. So they just changed it a little.
Yeah, because the
Right.
previous decision trees we've been operating with this year, there was one for vaccinated and a separate one for unvaccinated. So now they've been able to combine it all in one document.
Thank you. And another decision tree is for exposures in childcare and households or in the community. It's to be used when students are not in school, and staff. This actually applies to staff as well. They're not in school or in a supervised youth program or activity. All decision trees will be available on our COVID resources page, as well as MCOE's and Marin Health and Human Services websites as soon. Are they there yet, Marcy?
I think they're up there today. Donna found them. Yeah.
And that's all I had to share. That's all that's new so far.
And these have been really, really helpful. They're kind of that step-by-step, you follow the arrows, and the school sites have been able to use them in knowing what protocols to take, what steps to take when there is a reported positive case and or there may be an exposure that happens on school campuses. So thank you, Maria.
Thank you.
And this slide I put back up again this week. Again, just want to thank all of our staff, families, and students who are following our required and recommended guidelines for schools and their cooperation when a positive case is reported. With all of us working together to ensure, we'll ensure that our schools remain a healthy and safe place for learning. And if there's one thing we're accustomed to, I kind of mentioned this at the start, is that we continue to need to shift and adapt to the changing protocols. So just as we get used to one, there might be a change to the next. And we're very thankful for MCOE and Marin Health and Human Service support and guidance as we are navigating, implementing the protocols. One thing that we didn't anticipate would be the case this year as we were starting for the start of school, was that contact tracing would be occurring solely at the school level. So last year, Marin Health and Human Services was very much involved in every step of contact tracing. And this year it's pushed to the school sites, which has increased the workload of our school administrative assistants and our school principals. Marin Health and Human Services is still involved. They still review every one of the cases, and they will help to inform what happens when there is a positive case or an exposure. So we're very thankful for their ongoing support. But what can happen is the school site will send out information to families if they have staff members and families if there has been an exposure. But based on then the information that Marin Health and Human Services, after they review everything, they might come back with different protocols. So that means then a second communication would go out if there's been any change to that. And so the responding and with the contact tracing, it's very time consuming because the staff have to review seating charts. They need to communicate with teachers to find out, like as an example, a couple of weeks ago, a seating chart is great, but we want our classrooms to be dynamic places. And so the students are moving around, they're working in groups. And so as what happened a couple of weeks ago in one of the classrooms is that all of the students in the class needed to be on modified quarantine because of the way that the class operated in that particular day where there was a positive person in the room. And so with that, and our school nurse, where they all have, every one of our employees in our school district have duties and responsibilities as part of their regular job description. And just COVID has overlaid a whole new realm of responsibilities. And so one of the things that we realized is that we need additional support to help our schools. And so Teresa Machado is an example. She can help support a school's AA in something like doing their attendance for the day. And so that can be done remotely. It's all done through our student information system. So if the school AA is really busy with COVID related elements, Teresa can help support from a distance. And then also we're very thankful that Donna Faulkner, who just retired from our school district this last June as principal of Wade Thomas, has agreed to come out of retirement and to support us as our COVID response coordinator. And luckily, the state teachers retirement system relaxed its rules and requirements for sitting out of retirees for 180 days before they can return to any type of work. So Donna has been meeting with us, has been gathering information from Marin Health and Human Services through all of our communications that we've been sending out. And she's creating repositories for information, and she's assisting with that communication that goes out to family. I just watched a bunch of emails on my inbox come in today as there was initial notification to families at school, 2 schools in our district. And then a little while later, after Marin Health and Human Services weighed in, she did an updated. And this really helps to support the schools, because with our employees also needing to have a break at the end of the day. But COVID doesn't take a break. The notifications need to continue. So having Donna with us has been hugely helpful, and also to help our school nurse, because Nurse Megan has spent also an inordinate amount of time supporting with COVID related questions and what to do whens, and also on the front lines of communication with MHHS. And so we're extremely thankful to Donna. And we also have a parent in the district who is an RN. And Megan and I have been talking with her about possibly supporting also in our efforts. So because there's a lot of elements to Megan's job that she also has to get taken care of, like immunizations for students and making sure that we're tracking all of those. And so overall, as we are looking at our, Chris and I reviewed our COVID funding expenditures that we have spent to date or that have been encumbered, and taking a look at what is the remaining amount of money. Just a latest update is that our extended learning opportunities funding was supposed to be spent by no later than August 30th, 2022. They've now extended it another year. So in the event that we do not spend all of the money this year that we have, we'll be able to spend that in through 2022-23 school year as well. So as of right now, all of our state and federal COVID funds have the ability to be expended on out through, at the farthest end date for our ESSER funds is 2024. So our goal isn't to spend everything this year. We want to make sure that we have supports that are in place in future years. But we are ever so thankful for these one-time dollars, because as we all know, we've been talking about is our school budget, our district budget is not having the general fund dollars to be able to put towards this, these efforts to support us during the pandemic. So we're really thankful for that. And I think I have covered everything on that slide. And so now turning it over to Peg. Thank you, Peg.
Okay, hello everybody. So Manor, we're very excited at Manor to be one of 9 schools in the county to participate in the initial Binax Now rapid antigen test pilot program. Quite a mouthful. But we're very excited. This is a program between with a collaboration between Marin County Office of Education and under the guidance of Marin County Public Health and the California Department of Public Health. And not only is Manor participating, but now all schools in Marin are able to also participate, you know, in sort of a minimal level than Manor. So how it works is that when a student or staff member has COVID, any kind of COVID symptom, they come to the office and there are tests available. And believe it or not, in just 2 weeks, we have tested 30, a little over 30 students who've come in with some sort of COVID related symptom, runny nose, sore throat, slight fever, some stomach digestive issues. And believe it or not one of them have come out positive. So one thing we're learning is that the common cold is alive and well in Marin County, but luckily we haven't had COVID. So, and the other piece of good news is that if we didn't have this ability to test on site or to provide parents with the test, we would have so many children at home quarantining and missing school. And so I think this is one of the best rewards of this program, is that kids can stay in school and aren't having to stay home to quarantine. So we're very excited to be part of this. We also help parents and staff upload the data and do a survey so that the public health has the information and they can use this information and data to support future testing strategies in schools. So we're happy to be part of this program, and it's going well so far. Next slide. So breaking news, there is going to be vaccines available soon for ages 5 to 11-year-olds. Pfizer is expected to have the data to prove the effectiveness by the end of September, and will file that with the FDA as soon as possible. And they believe the vaccine will be available for children 5 to 11 by the end of October. So that's exciting news. We are also working with Marin County Office of Education and Public Health, and there are going to be weekend SuperPod vaccination clinics that parents can go to and take their children, starting at the end of October, and then second doses in November and December. So if all goes scheduled, students could be fully vaccinated by January, which would be amazing. So there will be pre-registration and walk-in appointment options. And there's a huge thank you to the public health team for planning ahead and for having these opportunities in place, and to the Mill Valley, Miller Creek, and Novato school districts for agreeing to host these SuperPods, these vaccination clinics. So there's also other plans for smaller site clinics at schools during the school day and in the evening, and possibly weekends. In addition, there's 2 information sessions that have been scheduled to support parents and guardians in learning more about the vaccine and getting their questions answered in advance of the vaccine clinics. The first one's October 13th, and that'll be in English and translated to Spanish. And the second one is October 20th, which will be conducted in Spanish and then translated in English. So exciting news. Be amazing if by January we could be almost fully vaccinated as a county. Incredible. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Peg. Any questions so far in the presentation?
I have a comment. You know, Peg mentioned that it's really great that they can test immediately and, you know, and keep those kids out of quarantine at home. But let's not forget that how that much of it is of an advantage is for the parents, because now parents don't have to stay home with their kid for 3 days. And it just starts to relieve that tension and that tax on the system from jobs to parents to kids. So congratulations to Peg and that whole team, and the fact that they're 30 for 30 for sending a kid back to the desk. And also that, you know, Marcy that stepped up and said, hey, let's do this, and was really on the ball and reached out for that program, because that relieves the system, believe it or not. And it goes a lot deeper than just that kid. So congratulations and great work. Keep it up.
Yeah, thank you.
And to your point, Ryan, I want to add that my own daughter was sick yesterday, got a test today at White Hill. And so is going to be able to go back to White Hill campus, tomorrow, if she's still fine. But this is definitely helping, and she's excited not to be stuck at home for the rest of the week. So it is real. For the kid, it is real not to be punished by just having a cold. This is like, I couldn't be happier than that. It's just fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah.
And we're just so thankful too that with Mary Jane Burke and the county office just really pushing, because the expanded pilot started much sooner than we thought it would be, with Manor just being rolled out for just even a week, I think. And then here we learned that all of our schools would have access to some tests. Now, there still is a shortage, and so the ability for more schools to continue to participate will depend on availability, but it's just great because our other schools have been able to take advantage of this too, just having them now since last Thursday. So it's great, yeah. All righty, and so our COVID mitigation resources webpage, we've updated again, and now our dashboard, we're showing for this week that we have 1 positive employee and 12 total students since we started the dashboard back on August 18th, our first day of school. And what we show on our dashboard is week to week and then cumulative. And so the great news that we still have 0 school-based transmissions, even though we do have some folks testing positive. The good news is, as far as I've heard, is none of the cases are serious, and folks are missing a few days of work and or school and recovering. And we're not seeing then the huge spread also in the home or amongst siblings. So that is beneficial. And we also have now started our Ross Valley School District vaccination status dashboard. So with this, we have 97% of our employees are fully vaccinated. And of course, to be fully vaccinated, it's 2 weeks after the second dose if you do the Moderna or the Pfizer, and then 2 weeks after the single dose Johnson & Johnson. And that's out of 200 employees. So 97% are fully vaccinated. And then of our students who are age eligible, the 12 years old on up, out of the 430 students who are 12 and up, 88% of them are fully vaccinated. So we are maintaining our dashboards in both English and in Spanish. And as Peg mentioned in her slide, that if all goes as planned and the Pfizer vaccine is approved for 5 to 11-year-olds, then by January, just in a few months, and we'll be able to have majority of our students 5 to 11 also fully vaccinated. So hoping to spread that word and get so families will know and that they won't have to wait to be vaccinated with their healthcare providers, but there will be the super pods, and they're great. I volunteered at the staff one back in January or February, and it's a very smooth operation. It's awesome. So just like any of adults who have gone through a vaccination center, you know just how well organized they are. So that's great news. We'll continue to update our vaccination status dashboard monthly. As we continue to fill our positions, we'll have more staff to add to this and also to check their vaccination status. And then just as what's the requirement is for employees in schools, it's either vaccination or test. And so if an employee is either partially vaccinated, not vaccinated, or declines to state their vaccination status, they are testing weekly and turning those results into human resources. And Chris Carson, our CBO, is helping them to know where are the testing resources. And then as of now, we do have monthly testing resources in the district. As Peg's slides talked about, the pilot is for symptomatic persons only, not for routine testing and or for asymptomatic persons of exposure, but for students and staff who actually experience COVID symptoms are those. So, so there's that. And then also we're looking at our students 12 and up. So we are not all of our kids have a birth date on the same date. So as they have their birthdays, we'll continue to monitor their vaccination status and continue to update. So you'll see this number of students increase, and then hopefully our high rate of vaccination status among our students will also remain high. So feeling really good about our vaccination status of all eligible employees and students. And Shelley?
I was just thinking with the super pods and the vaccination schedule that we just heard about, making sure, or one, it's a question, and if depending on the answer, can students 12 and older participate in those super pod vaccination days? It was said as like, from 5 to 12.
Mhm.
And if so, communicating out to our entire school communities, this is for all students in the school. So all of you 12 and up kids
If
who
that's,
haven't,
yes, if that's the case, we will definitely communicate that out. Right now, they're anticipating 5 to 11-year-olds. There are 21,000 in
Huh.
Marin County. And so there may not be enough space on those super pod days to get anyone other than 5 to 11 years old vaccinated. But if that is the case, and thank you for mentioning that, I'll definitely inquire. Because if our 12 and ups are able to continue to take advantage of or are able to participate in that those vaccination clinics, then we'll definitely want to let families know that.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. All right, and this is a slide here of the Marin County School Status Dashboard. So on their dashboard, in one place, they maintain for vaccination status and the COVID positive cases. And so on the left-hand side here is that we're showing that 43% of Marin County schools, and our district is one, are reporting the vaccination status of the eligible students and of their staff. So students countywide, we're at 83%. And as you'll remember from the previous slide in Ross Valley, we're at 88% of our 12 and older eligible students. And then staff who are fully vaccinated, our numbers are the same as the countywide. So as 97% of employees. And then over on to the right, there have been a cumulative 18 staff positive cases. And then, oh, that didn't show up there. Let me look at my notes here. And then a total of 88 or 154, there it is, 154 cumulative student cases in all private and public Marin County schools, and a total of 13 potential in-school transmissions. So here in Ross Valley, we've had 0, but elsewhere throughout the county, 13. And if you go onto this, our slide deck and go on to the Marin County, this is a live link up at the top here for the dashboard. Once you get there, you can actually click to see schools, and you can see how many students and staff members are in each of the schools that are included in this dashboard. So this is updated every Friday, weekly on Fridays. And let's see, so it looks like a really useful dashboard to be able to know that, in Marin County, we just have a super high rate of vaccination. And also we are very thankful in our own district for our families' supportive and response when their students are exhibiting symptoms. They're keeping them home, not sending them to school with symptoms. And now with our participating in the testing pilot, we're able to get a test immediately. And it's within 15 minutes of taking the test, folks know. And county health has said that a positive is a positive and a negative is a negative. And so we're able to base what happens next on those rapid antigen test results. So great news there. And with that, just want to see if there are any other questions or comments for this evening.
I don't, not hearing any, so I think very much appreciate, again, all of the time that it takes to continue to both track and report and then share out to both us and the community on the current situation. So thank you for the time that's being put into this, and that our district is taking it seriously and taking action to keep our kids safe and in school. And that's wonderful.
Thank
And
you.
in school, the best place for them to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. And for
Thank you.
students who do need to quarantine, they're able to take advantage of the independent study option for us to be able to also be able to show attendance. And our next item up tonight is, I think, going to really highlight the importance of keeping kids in school and attending daily.
Excellent segue.
Nice transition, Marcy.
Excellent transition
Very
into the next one, which is talking about improving our strategic enrollment management services and the need for us to be mindful and thoughtful about how we help families in our community, families who are moving to our community, families who are in our schools, understand the enrollment process, feel welcome into our schools, and make it make it approachable and welcoming for students to enroll in our schools. So Marcy, if you want to talk a little bit about some of what we're looking at in terms of improving and enhancing our enrollment management and outreach services.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm going to provide a little bit of history because I think providing that context and keep coming back to our budget, coming back to the bottom line as to how we can continue to best support and offer schooling programs for our students. So over the past few years, Ross Valley has experienced a decline in enrollment that is consistent with historical and cyclical trends that go on in the district. And these trends in California have been predicted to continue over the next few years across Marin and the state of California. And you may have seen the article in the IJ today that talked about an overall 5% decline in first day attendance this school year. The article says enrollment, but it was actually about attendance. And as a reminder, enrollment is the number of students who are registered to attend a school, and attendance is the number of students present on any given day. School districts like Ross Valley who are revenue limit, that means opposed to basic aid or community funded, we receive funding based on attendance and a look at how many students are actually in school in seats every day. And so it's important that we not only increase and or maintain our enrollment, but that we also ensure that students are attending. And so as I mentioned in the previous item with the independent study, that helps because with COVID in play, we have a higher number of students who need to be absent because they're exhibiting symptoms. And or now, hopefully, with the more testing in schools, then we'll see fewer student absences. And to this end, as you remember from a couple of board meetings ago, you all approved our ability to contract with King and Associates to be able to look at a long-term enrollment projection study. And we're waiting for that report. But we know that it's not just about receiving a report and looking at where to potentially the trends in Ross Valley. Having that information is not enough. We must engage in a systematic and holistic approach to student enrollment and fiscal stability. So as you all know from our, I think it was may have been the last board meeting where Chris did an overview of our unaudited actuals and looking at, we still do have a structural deficit. The good news is that our enrollment for this year is up over our enrollment for last year. And we, though, have seen a 5% decline in our student enrollment from last school year, but we're not seeing as much of a decline as we saw last year back to the 2019-20 school year. The good news is that we're currently funded based on our 2019-20 attendance numbers. However, when we enter into the 22-23 school year, next school year, our funding is going to revert back to, at least in terms of what we know now from the state, is that it's going to revert back to the previous year's enrollment or attendance numbers. And so with that, if we're looking at a decline from our 2019-20, we're going to have a pretty dramatic lower revenue stream next year when we're funded based on 2021-22 numbers. And so the educational landscape, as we all know, has changed with increased opportunities for parents to choose the educational environment for their child. And with that comes the need for us to focus on attracting, enrolling, and retaining students. Without enrollment stability, we won't have fiscal sustainability, which means we will be unable to provide the investments necessary to improve student outcomes. And everything that you've seen on our presentations tonight and our updates is all focused around being able to have evidence and impacts for student outcomes. Investments can include programs and services, but since the majority of our expenditures go to people, our employees who implement our programs and services, one investment we need to make for our students is to attract and retain a diverse workforce. And one way to do that is to improve our employees' salaries. We haven't been able to give a raise since the 2019-20 school year. We're currently in negotiations for the 21-22 school year, but how many students we have in our district is critical. We can't fix our structural budget deficit on making cuts alone. We have to look at ways to increase our revenues. And with that, looking at ways to increase our enrollment, and therefore from there, our attendance is going to be critical to us. As a district and as individual schools, we want to do everything we can to get families' attention and to show them what we're all about. But how do we do that when we're not sure how they'll encounter us? That's where our marketing efforts come in. We need to present our school's characters and personalities in every way that we communicate, from our website, school pages, social media presence, verbal and written communications and interactions, and beyond, such as our events and activities like our preview nights, our preschool outreach, and our registration processes. Simply put, our brand is our promise to our students and families and tells a lot about our values, culture, and goals. We want families to recognize us and connect with the great things we're providing students academically and socially, emotionally. That knowledge and that realization has led us to where we are this evening. As Sean and I were meeting with Schoolment folks to discuss our use of their online registration enrollment system, we learned that they've developed a marketing element and are now a completely integrated strategic enrollment management system. Shelley Hamilton, Sean Maher, our Director of Student Information Technology, Teresa, our Executive Assistant, and I have met with their team a few times now to learn more about their marketing team and their services. Schoolment has developed a phased approach to implementing the solutions necessary that we believe will see increased enrollment. In phase one, which we hope to begin soon if you approve the contract with Schoolment this evening, the Schoolment team will help us in our marketing and branding efforts by providing a thorough needs analysis. They're going to be doing a variety of audits. Examples are our district website, our web pages, our school pages, our registration process to see how we can streamline that even more. The whole reason we went with Schoolment in the first place for our online registration system is to make it easier on families to go through the registration, the back to school processes. So they'll be taking a look at how we do that. And they'll also be taking a look at our stakeholder service efforts. So how are we communicating with families when they contact a school, when they contact me here at the district office to find out, or contact Teresa about our enrollment practices and about our schools, taking a look at the opportunities families have to learn about us. And they'll be using that data to help us develop a baseline of understanding of where our district's current strengths and weaknesses are. And then we'll build all employees' awareness of the importance of marketing, because that's going to be on every single one of us to participate in the attracting and retaining our families. And then Schoolment staff will help provide consulting support and direct training as we begin to prioritize the necessary changes to become a more effective and successful in our marketing approach. And through each element of phase one, the great news about the way that Schoolment has their program structured is that we'll be able to identify some low-hanging fruit right early on, that we can start to make changes immediately. So just like what you heard earlier, our racial equity action plan, we're not waiting until we have a full plan in place. We're getting started right off the bat to make some initial changes with what we're doing. And then also to be able to plan for longer term fixes to our marketing operations. And so with that, just to see if you all have any questions, want to hear any more, had another meeting today with Schoolment folks to look at just some ways our back to school system happens through their system, and they're able to make some changes through their functions that are kind of built into their program as well.
And the only thing I would add from the conversations in terms of working with Schoolment is that they are specifically focused at the school enrollment systems, management systems. They're not just a general, communications firm, if you will. They're specifically around working with schools. And what also resonated with me is I don't know if you all have heard this story in our community, but I've heard many people talk to me about how much they love our schools, how great experience their kids are coming in, but people just don't know about it. It's like, once you get there, you know about the school, and people really love our schools, and they can give many examples of what their kids are really benefiting from and enjoying. and they're like, how come more people don't know about this? How come you don't tell everybody about this? And so it's a feeling of there's a lot of amazing and great work being done with the kids and things happening in the classroom. And we are just talking about how do we communicate that more broadly and more apparently to a wider audience with this. So that's what attracted, because I've heard that several times in, like, in the community about more people need to know. So.
And one of the elements, you know, as educators, we're trained to teach. We're trained to support students and the classroom and with their academic and social emotional needs, and to support families. And I think
as it should be.
As it should be.
As it should be.
But just as we're one option that families have, we also need to be able to highlight and showcase everything that we do and we do well. And then, of course, you know, as we talked about earlier in one of the previous presentations, we're learning along the way, and we're going to continue to make shifts in our programming and what our families encounter when they come to our schools. And so all of our efforts this year, and so one of the sub levels of priorities is marketing and communications under the area of fiscal sustainability. Those aren't ones that we highlight out there in the work, but those are ones that we know we're continuing to work on, because all of our top 3 priorities are racial equity, our multi-tiered system of support, as well as our health and safety protocols, are not going to be feasible and possible without having fiscal sustainability. And so all of our efforts are aligned. We're moving all in the same direction to ensure that we can continue to provide the best educational experience for our students.
Any other questions or reflections?
Marie, here, a reflection on, as we talked about you doing more work, Marcy, right? Is that we like, you know, we had that conversation over the last few board meetings about how much work you are doing and how much more work you are doing, because we are reorganizing, you are reorganizing your team. And I really thought about the communication as being something that you always said, I need help there. And that's help, you know what I'm saying? And I think this is targeted help on something that I think it's actually appropriate and a good idea to get some support. And I'm not saying completely outsource that, but getting some support. As we know in other districts of bigger size, where the one I'm sitting in right now, you have staff that are doing communication. But in a mid-size, small-size districts, we don't have that staff. So I think this is even more relevant and more appropriate, I think, from an investment perspective, that you actually get some help in getting that done, specifically about how important it is for the long, you know, the long term of our district to really get the maximum number of families to join, right? So I think it's you need to, it's one of those that you need to make money, you need to spend some money to make some money. You also need to acknowledge when you are not that good at doing one thing. And I think communication and marketing, this is something that is a technical skills that I do not think we collectively have, and not I'm expecting us to have. So I think this is, I'm in favor of this approach. I don't know that company specifically, but I do believe this is the right direction.
Thank you. And just to clarify, they're going to be identifying us and working with us, but we're the ones who will be doing all of the changes. So they'll be able to provide, you know, definitely some support. But the point that you're making, Marie, is definitely with that area of communications, because as we're shifting and as we're going to be making some changes to what we do, they do have to be communicated out. And you are right. I've been doing the research out there, and even smaller school districts like ours do have specific support. So I'm on the look for, and I still believe you need that.
I still believe you need that.
Yeah.
But this is a framework, and that's
it is. Yeah. It'll certainly help us get there to know exactly what we need, because like I'm ever thankful for some parents that we had a few years ago, starting in the 17-18 school year, start to work with us and share their expertise in marketing and branding for private sector, not schools, but other businesses and things like that. And the one thing that caught my attention when Sean and I were meeting with Schoolmint a few weeks ago was when they mentioned this, they actually have a whole team now that their background is on school marketing. So it's targeted specifically to what schools do. And the Schoolment team in one of our meetings early on, when we started meeting with them to learn more about their services on this front, is that they showed us some of the direct results of the work that they've done with schools and or school districts. And so to see kind of that outcome, and it was notable how those school districts have been able to transform them. And that's along the lines of what we're doing this year through our MTSS with having our partners and our other supports, is that teaching us how to do this so that we can go so long after they've left us, we have the tools, we have the framework to know what we need to do to keep doing it. And so I know that the price tag feels like a lot, but as we've done, Chris and I have done the analysis, just to get 3 more students in our school district, this will be completely paid for. And then any students more than that will ultimately help. And we need to do everything we can to, as I mentioned throughout, for our fiscal sustainability. We have to do everything we can. And so a small price to pay for the ongoing health of the district.
Rachel or Ryan? Anything to add?
So, we've used the Schoolment for the last few years now for just registering, which has been a nice help as far as paperwork goes when you have 2 kids enrolled. How long have they been doing this marketing piece? I mean, do you have an idea?
What I gathered was it's been at least 3 years.
Okay. And they've got a track record, obviously. Of having
And
success.
the person that they've come in, his background is with Emory University. He's been doing school marketing and specific work for over 7 years. And before that, he was in pharma, as in marketing and pharma. Yeah.
And they did show us examples like before and after examples and some data on increased enrollment and things like that from the prior clients that they've been working with. So
just wanted to double check. Thanks.
We're not their pilot run at this.
But we were right on the very start of when Schoolment was just starting. We were one of the first districts.
At the platform, at the enrollment platform, yeah.
And so we're really impressed with the changes that they've been able to make over the years to become a completely integrated system. So they're not just, as I think one of the biggest realizations Sean and I had in meeting with them a couple of weeks ago was when Jeremy, who was the person we were talking with, was able to tell us, we had this realization that we've been using Schoolment solely as kind of a repository of forms. And that's not how they see themselves. That's not what their intent was from the start. And so as we talked more, and over the past couple of weeks, been talking more with more members of this added team, really learning the full extent to the power that Schoolment can have for our district.
Right. And Ryan, do you, I'm assuming this is a
Recommended
a
action.
recommended action for us. So before we move into that, Ryan, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I mean, it's hard to believe that education has to get into a competition for kids, concept. And the fact that you have to even have a marketing department for children, for schools it just doesn't seem like it's a normal thought process. And when you get into this industry of, education and, it's a business, but these are the business decisions that are made behind an organization like a school district. But these are the times, and we all know that, it is about putting your name out there. I mean, the great thing is we don't have to sell ourselves so hard, because I think we're an amazing school district. So the advantage of not having to upsell our concept, but really just kind of expose who we are and what we do, and have it be done at a way that's easier and more efficient. The money doesn't scare me at all, because I believe the results will be there. And I think it's the way that you have to start to look at this recruitment and tracking. And so, yeah, I think it's very necessary. It's something that, we need to work on as a district, is the marketing.
I really appreciate, Ryan, that you brought that up, because I've been uncomfortable with that too, but I am confident that we will represent the district in this process with integrity and fidelity to who the district is, and just, as you said, kind of expose that to more audiences. It's not about putting a spin on anything. It's not about a hard sell. It's about doing it with fidelity and integrity to who the district is, and celebrating the wonderful work of all of the teachers and the administrators and what students are doing in the classroom, and seeing it as a celebration and an ongoing acknowledgement and letting everyone else know. So thanks for just highlighting the difference between it being something that it's not.
It's
gonna
almost like a back to school night for the community who wouldn't really be there in you know, at that one event. It's just, and you know, like I am really proud of the work that this staff and this group of people have put together in this district. So I would be proud. I'd be waving that flag as high as I could, because it is amazing work and it is amazing people and it is amazing results. So why not?
Thank you. And you guys you've all made great comments too, to really support and highlight the work. And thank you, Shelley. When I was telling her about the meeting, she's like, I'd love to come. So it's just so helpful to have her there with us to hear and see, because I think, you know, Shelley's day job, she does a lot of this work too, and sees how critically important websites are and all the communications that we do. So thank you, Shelley.
And with that, if there aren't any, we can entertain a motion to move this item forward.
I'll make
Go ahead
the
and make-
motion, Ryan.
You beat me to it, Ryan. I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by Ryan and a second from Rachel, and we'll go ahead and have a vote. Ryan?
Aye.
Rachel?
Aye.
Marie?
Aye.
And Shelley? Aye. All right, I appreciate everything and looking forward to, as you said, Marcy, rolling this out in an iterative. We'll see some results shortly. So that's exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so very much, everyone.
All right, we have our last presentation and action item, which is recommended approval of an amendment to the employment contract between the Ross Valley School District and the superintendent, Marcy Trahan. Marcy, I'll let you just say any technical things, but Marie and I were tasked this last year to work with Marcy to complete her performance evaluation for the 2021 school year. And as we've discussed with respect to that performance evaluation, we've all been very pleased and very happy with Marcy's performance over her inaugural work in her contract and her first year. So with that positive evaluation, we wanted to acknowledge that positive evaluation by extending her contract for the legal maximum of 4 years, and also to extend the provision of her support with coaching and support as well as part of that contract. So that is what is before us, is to acknowledge and appreciate the positive evaluation process by extending Marcy's contract, keeping her with us as long as is legally possible, which is the 4 years. Marcy, I don't know if there's anything else that you want to add about the technicalities of the contract.
And not around that. I just want to thank you for working with me to work on the addendum and also through the evaluation process. It was truly the most meaningful evaluation process that I have ever gone through. And I know it was the same process that the board used with the previous superintendent, and it was so personally useful. I absolutely love the self-feedback, self-reflection component of it, and also hearing from all of you with that. So I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate that your trust and your faith in me to be able to extend me the full length of a contract, and also recognizing that as the superintendent, there are some supports sometimes that are needed, no matter how many years a person is sitting in the position. And so I really appreciate it and acknowledge the support that you're providing me as an ongoing in my superintendency here. And I absolutely love this district. I absolutely love this position I have. I wasn't quite sure, you know, how it was going to go, and I absolutely have loved it, and just really think Ross Valley is an amazing and a great place to be, and it just shows from every single employee in our district, to our board of trustees, our students, our families, and just being in the Fairfax and San Anselmo communities is really a special place. And I really love doing the work here. So thank you.
Let me add a few words around the process of that evaluation, Marcy and the rest of the board. I think we did a beginner job, Shelly and I, to support you in that exercise. That the first time we were doing that, Shelly and I, we have already noticed how we can improve it later, that in the second round, and how we could have a couple of things done better on our end. So I'm already ready for the next round about how we can make that smoother earlier in the year, and smoother so that we can, that wouldn't change the content of the conversation, but really make it a little bit, you know, a little bit easier for you, and a bit more formal on our end so that we can provide you a little bit more written feedback. But it doesn't have to be necessarily much bigger, but just a couple of improvements for next year that I'm already saying that we could have, you could benefit from that, and all of us as an organization. So thank you for bearing with us as we were learning. We all were learning at the same time. So that was a great experience.
And we will be beginning the process in October. So is this addendum that's here before you this evening is an addendum to the contract. So if it's approved, all other elements of the contract will remain in force for the full extent of the contract period. And evaluation, it begins in October. So like you mentioned, Marie, we got started a little late last year, and so we'll be making improvements along the way to the whole entire process. So yeah, I think it's great, and I'm looking forward to it.
Rachel or Ryan, any other thoughts? And we can then entertain an action. Hearing none or some.
I'll make a motion to approve.
And a second.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second with Ryan and Marie. We'll go with the vote. Ryan.
Aye.
Marie.
Aye.
Rachel.
Aye.
And Shelley. Aye. All right, we got you for another year, Marcy. Thank
you.
We got for the whole 4 years. Fantastic. And thank you for putting that together. And we will start the process up again in October. All right.
Thanks so much.
Our that was our last presentation and action item. So we are now moving into the consent actions. There are 7 consent actions on the docket for consent, and we typically, as usual, approve them all in one motion. But beforehand, if there's any clarification questions or any particular item that needs comment by the board, want to stop and pause and give people a moment to do that if need be. So if there's anything from the board on that, otherwise I will, hearing nothing, I will assume that there's no need for clarification or removing anything and can entertain a consent motion.
So moved, Ryan.
I can second it, Rachel.
All right. So we've got motion in a second with Ryan. We'll go ahead and vote. Ryan?
Aye.
And Rachel?
Aye.
Marie?
Aye.
And Shelley? Aye. Okay, which takes us to board business. And that would be committee updates and reports from trustees. Anybody have any committees, board committees between? I know when we have these meetings, they feel like, you know, every couple of weeks or so, not a whole lot of time in between for updates, but is anyone?
No meetings on my end.
No, Rachel, Ryan, anything?
Nope.
No. All right, so we will look forward to updates at the next meeting in person. And let's see. Yeah, discussion and agreement for the Board of Trustees and Superintendent to attend the California School Board Association Annual Education Conference in 2021. So this is a board business item. I have actually submitted a proposal for a presentation that was approved. So I will be going to the CSBA conference as a presenter. And Marcy, I don't know if you want to give a little bit of history and background. I'm not sure if everybody knows what the California School Board Association Education Conference is and kind of how the district has participated or not in the past.
Sure. Yep. So the California School Boards Association does hold an annual conference. In one year, it's in Southern California, and another year it's in Northern. This year it happens to be in San Diego. And as through learnings with COVID, they're also going to provide a virtual experience. It's on a wonderful way for leadership teams, school boards, and superintendents to come together and to continue the learning that as trustees and as superintendents and working as governance teams. And so there are speakers, there are breakout sessions, and there are a lot of opportunities for learning more about governance in schools. And so I know, Shelley, you're presenting at this year. You have one of the sessions.
Yep.
And then this year, as I mentioned, there's the in-person option, which runs from Thursday, December 2nd through Saturday, December 4th. And then the virtual option is the following week, Thursday to Friday, the 9th and 10th of December. And historically in our district, the governance team has attended the Northern California conference. But because last year with COVID, it didn't happen, we wanted to be sure that we extended the opportunity for this year for all of us to be able to attend as much as anybody is interested and or able to attend. And then next year it should be back up in Northern California. So we will be able to attend for sure as well next year. The costs are listed at the in-person is $625 per person. And of course, there would be airfare, hotel stay, that kind of thing as well. On top of that, the virtual option, of course, doesn't have any travel or overnight stay, and that's a reduced rate of $450. And so if anyone is interested in attending either the virtual or the in-person options, wanted to be able to have a conversation here this evening, of course, the costs would be borne by the district to be able to attend.
Mercy, it's Rachel. Do you happen to know if the virtual option is like, is it you have to sit at the computer at a certain time, or is it like a recording you can go and watch at your leisure? Do you know?
They do offer the sessions, and in my review of their website, I didn't see that they were recorded necessarily. So I think, and it would be where they offer the session, so you would sign up for which sessions you would like to participate in. But I think you do need to be present when that individual session. The in-person option, I could find a lot more on the website as through the process. The virtual option was a little bit harder to get through. I tried searching multiple ways to get more information. Like I had to search for the cost. I couldn't find that readily on their website. So I had to do some digging. But I could learn more. And so if you are interested, Rachel, we could certainly learn more out of tonight, knowing what the interest is. We would follow back up with each of you, Teresa and I, to learn more. So any questions you have, I'm happy to look into them and then get back to you with the answers as I learn, because they do have a phone number I can call that to find out more.
Yeah, I would be curious to know just like how that virtual option is structured.
Sure. Okay.
Thank
The
you.
question for me, like I'm not interested in traveling, but the online option could be of interest to me for, but I was also trying to find information and I couldn't find enough to see if that would be manageable with working at the same, not at the same time, but with a working day where I can spend a little bit of time in the morning or evening for that. I just couldn't figure it out.
Okay.
But keep me in the loop if you find something.
Okay.
And when you find something.
And Marcy, then this is also on the agenda as an action item, which I believe is a standard thing for the trustees to kind of acknowledge and approve other trustees being at conferences and superintendent attending. Can you say just a little bit how that works?
And to approve the cost so that we're all agreeing that we would be expending whatever amount of money would be needed. We haven't looked into yet the hotel and or the airfare. So we could always, is knowing how many of you are interested in either the virtual and or the in-person, we would find out more information. Luckily, the registration dates are running for quite a while. So we have time to find answers, and then we could come back later with what the full cost would be. But we'd want to get you registered sooner than later. So that would just be getting back to you. I think the basic cost here, we all kind of have a sense of what airfare costs as well as hotel stays. So we would be able to come back with the full cost of that. But we wouldn't want, as we're getting together as a governance team, one of the most critical components that we could do is continue to work together really well as a governance team. And so participating in any kind of growth opportunities and learning more about roles as the superintendent, roles as the trustees, and working together is just going to help to benefit our district too. So I think, as with anything that we do, that growth opportunity should be able to be there as well for trustees, because you guys get paid the big bucks for your role in volunteering.
I missed that somehow. Didn't
You missed that big volunteer opportunity bucks. We get. So tonight's action would just be approving. Marcy, you were going to do the virtual and I was going to do the in-person, and then we can go look at the additional questions, and then if you guys are interested, come back with another action.
Are any of you interested in the in-person option, or would it be just the virtual? So
It would be just the virtual.
Yeah,
For
okay.
me, just a virtual.
And depending on
not-
format.
And it depends on the format.
Yes. So
Because the timing is also timing of other stuff at work that
Sure.
just make it's the timing, because it's a bit later, it make it close to other things I have to do. So
Right.
that may not work. Yeah. Okay.
that might not work.
Sure. Okay.
And sometimes they record them, so it's live, and then you can review the recording afterwards. So ask whether that's also.
Yeah, and because that's what I'm finding with a lot of trainings that I've been doing, like with Brown Act trainings and things like that, is that they are, once you sign up and get registered, they are recorded so you can watch them later. So this might very well be like that too. If we pay the registration fee, we might have access later. So
But we need to know that ahead of time.
Sure,
You know what I'm saying? Otherwise, it's like, well, if it's recorded and then you show up, it's not. It is. I have
Yeah.
attended some meetings that were not recorded.
and they
So
were
make sure.
advertised as recorded. Okay.
They don't specifically, but it's like, okay, no, this one is not recorded.
Yeah.
And you don't know.
All right.
yeah.
Well, I'll
Okay.
find out and I'll let you know. And then Ryan, do you have an interest as well? And or if you do you have any questions or anything you want me to find out?
I have interest, but I won't be attending, and I don't have any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. All right, so Rachel Marie, the online, and I will check in with Wesley since he wasn't able to be here this evening.
Great.
And then Shelley, the in-person.
We do need an action on this item.
I'll go ahead and move that we approve the cost for the members of the board and the superintendent to plan to attend the CSBA Annual Education Conference of 2021.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second of, we'll vote. Rachel,
Aye.
Marie,
Aye.
Ryan.
Aye.
All right. Thank you all.
And
And
Shelley,
then-
did you vote?
Oh, Shelley, aye.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. And now we are on to the approval of the meeting minutes for September 14th, 2021. Does anybody have any edits or things that we need to correct or update? Otherwise, we can go ahead and move those minutes.
I've reviewed the meeting and I make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from September 14 meeting.
I can second it.
All right, so we have a motion and a second with Marie and Rachel, and we'll vote. Marie,
Aye.
Rachel,
Aye.
Ryan,
Aye.
and Shelley, aye. All right, September 4th meetings are approved. Superintendent and cabinet report and updates.
All right, thank you so much. And Chris, any updates from the business office, maintenance and operations?
Yes, actually, I have several. First, we discussed COVID mitigation efforts earlier this evening, including testing during the RVSD Schools Full Return 21-22 presentation. One of the most basic forms of mitigation is maintaining and cleaning of our school sites. And the maintenance and custodial staff have been working extra hard to ensure that we are doing our part in this COVID mitigation effort. And I just wanted to extend my greatest appreciation to these staff members for everything that they do every day. It's one of those unsung type of tasks. And so I just wanted to do that. The Ross Valley School District, the governing board, the administration and all staff take health of our school communities very seriously. That was made very evident by everything that we talked about in relation to COVID and mitigation strategies. However, it doesn't stop right there. After discussion with Marcy and with a school site administrator recently, we began the process of obtaining AEDs in every one of our school sites. And an AED, for those who may not know the term, is an automated external defibrillator. So should somebody go into cardiac arrest, the first several minutes is the most critical period. And that time is generally as you're waiting for emergency services to get there. And so the external defibrillators, these AEDs, will allow us to be able to provide services to those people in advance of the emergency services. And so we will be working with the school site staff to get training. I'm in the process of doing that right now so that we know how to use the devices. And I'll be working with the site administrators at each school so that we know the best place to put that at each school, because it may be different at each one. And so I know that there might be one or two people who have something to say about that as well, positive, because I know that there's been some work from some of our local officials on getting those as well in the past. So I just wanted to let everybody know that and thank Marcy for helping to spearhead that.
And I want to pause there because I want to go back to last school year when I came on board, and Rachel is just one of those folks who's here with us this evening around Hidden Valley and having AED there. And so want to just, Rachel, I didn't forget. There you go. Thank you. And also now to be able to get them at each of our schools is really critical. An interesting just side related to that is I do receive weekly, if not sometimes more frequently than that, updates from Tony Thurman's office, state superintendent. And what's interesting is which I think, we didn't really think about or focus on, was the potential impact on students' physical health after they've had COVID, that paying attention to them around physical education and being physically active is something that we need to also pay close attention to. So I think sometimes just taking it for granted that when you're over an illness, then you can get right back to normal, but needing to be aware that students might need to take it easy for a little bit of time. So again, health and safety being our one of our 3 priorities this year. We're just making efforts to keep getting all of our priorities into action and in play. So thank you, Chris, for making that happen. And thank you, Rachel, for the reminder, because in my previous job here in the district, that wasn't something I was involved in. So it had completely left my thinking. So thank you, Rachel, for keeping that in the fore.
Thank you.
All right.
Rachel, do you want to say a few words and give us a little history?
Oh my gosh. I went into action at Hidden Valley when my 17-year-old cousin, who had an undiagnosed heart condition that we didn't know about, he had a sudden cardiac event and basically his heart stopped and his life was saved with an AED because he happened to be at a stadium that had them and he had people around who knew how to use them properly.
17, and his younger brother, who we didn't know, also had a genetic problem with his heart, same thing. And they both have defibrillators like implanted now, but it's something that like they were totally healthy. They both did sports. And if they had been anywhere without an AED, they wouldn't be here. So I'm really grateful that those are in our schools. And I think that it's a huge, important safety device that we need to have. And they're super simple to use. I'm certified to use one. I have one at my office at work. And I think it's just such an easy, simple thing. It's a little costly, but so worthwhile to have. And I'm just really grateful that those are going to be in our schools. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you for that backstory. I don't think I knew all of that. So thank you. Now it's really helpful to know. And so Julia, anything more on curriculum instruction and HR?
There's that too. We have a professional development day coming up on October 11th. And so we've been busy planning for that. And it's going to be, we're going to do it kind of in a mini conference style where teachers can select sessions that they are really interested in and see as a good match for their own needs. All teachers will be working once again with Deborah McKnight, but then they can choose from a number of sessions. Our MTSS coaches are running a session on on-demand writing and strategy groups. And we've got a session on understanding sensory integration and the role of self-regulation tools in the classroom. Autumn Arbery, our wellness coordinator, is going to do a session on staff and student wellness. And then we have our EL and intervention teachers also doing a session diving into some newer reading research. So a number of different interesting things that teachers can kind of hook into and enjoy. And then in the afternoon, all teachers will be going back to their sites doing equity-based PD with their site principals. So looking forward to the 11th.
Great. Thank you, Julia. And Eric Sable, anything from student services?
Absolutely. Today was super exciting. Thanks to the support of the trustees and the superintendent with our signed MOU with UCSF Dyslexia Center. Their research team had their first practice run, if you will, with a kindergarten and first grade class this morning at Wade Thomas. Really want to thank Principal Harris for opening up her campus to, essentially they're looking to kind of test out their beta testing process. And so the students came, sat with them for about 10 minutes. They were able to kind of troubleshoot some software issues, and Sean Maher was so wonderful to come over and help them kind of sort through some of the tech pieces. And all of this is in preparation for the official process, which is going to be 3 visits at Brookside throughout the year, starting in October. And the net result is that we get to be research partners with this renowned research institution, and at the end of it, have at our disposal a universal screener for dyslexia to utilize with all of our students, TK through first grade. So extremely exciting. Last week, we had our first MTSS design team meeting. We're calling this representative group of professionals from across our district a design team. Many practices in place, but our goal is to create a cohesive set of approaches in terms of intervention in the academic and social emotional realm, how we're collecting data, looking at it, responding, understanding best practice. So it's just super exciting. We have teachers, we have our literacy specialists, our MTSS partners, our wellness coordinator, Julia, myself. We have some principals. So it's just a really exciting group. And so we plan to update our trustees throughout the year on how that work is going. Our first DLAC is going to be next week, October 6th, via Zoom, kind of in the format we used last year. So we're excited to come together to connect with our English language learning families And then we're going to kind of pivot and do something that we weren't able to do last year, and that's have site-based meetings. So we really want to kind of forge a more personal connection with our families and the school sites, with the administration, with the teaching staff. So we're looking to kind of have a mixed format this year for that. And lastly, TAM Unified is their wellness center is co-sponsoring a teen wellness film festival. And I was privileged to be a part of a panel discussion that's a part of this online package. And we discussed the main film, which is called Chasing Childhood. And again, it's centered on wellness. It's centered on how we're helping all of our young people navigate, not just the challenges of the pandemic, but some bigger societal issues. So I was proud to represent Ross Valley School District in that endeavor. And I did talk a lot about all the significant investments that we've made as a district and community in wellness practices. So more information to come to our community about that film festival, which will be held online in early October. And that is it for student services.
Thank you so much, Eric. And lastly, just from the superintendent's office, just want to say really happy that YES was able to give its first payment of $70,000 to the district this year. And they do make 10 even payments. And then if there's whatever the difference is between what they've committed to the district in July, they give us the balance of that. And so the good news is they're starting off with being able to do their payments so far this year, and they haven't even launched their full campaign for fundraising. And so hopefully, fingers crossed, I think they have a good plan this year. And so fingers crossed that they'll be able to help or raise the money that they committed to every year for the district art and music programs and library books as well. So fingers crossed. And just on the HR front, one of the roles that I'm keeping this year is certificate or evaluation of employees. And back when I was in my previous role, we had gone through a 3-year process to develop a new evaluation system for certificated employees. And it's a growth mindset model, and has a lot of self-evaluation and self-reflection opportunities in it. And so because we paused evaluation for the last 2 years, 1920 and 2021, having to dig back in and reteach, because 1920 was our first year beyond the pilot. And so we're getting back into that this year. And we do have 2 new administrators this year, Eric and Julie Harris, our principal at Wade Thomas, who aren't familiar with the program at all. So I've been digging back in, refreshing myself on the program, and really excited to begin using this well, because one of the main differences that we did was we're not having teachers set goals, or unit members, whether they're a speech pathologist or a classroom teacher, speech and language resource teacher, is they develop an evaluation plan. So they're really taking a look at a study and something that they're looking to work on and improve. What we had found under our old system is that the goals would get written, but they were really just based on the standards for the teaching profession and not real useful goals that they could help improve and themselves, and also affect their grade level colleagues or department colleagues. And so that was a main focus of our evaluation program. And so with that, in developing the evaluation plan, we're keeping with our 3 priorities, keeping those efforts that we're all making. So I'm going to recommend that evaluation plans are centered around racial equity, as well as the multi-tiered system of support, because the first level of support in a multi-tiered system of support approach is in the classroom. And to be able to differentiate, help to give first level of interventions to students. So as our teachers are all digging in on the equity as well as the multi-tiered system of support, being able to help focus on that And the other part of the evaluation program, which we really loved, was our professional development plan under our old system, where if you were a veteran teacher, you were able to really take a look and dig into a year-long project, or it could span over 2 years. And we wanted to extend that opportunity to our newer teachers, unit members as well. And so there's elements of our evaluation program, and we're really looking forward to digging into it. So I think with that, that's it for updates this evening. So
Any questions for any of the staff on any of those updates? I was just going to say, Eric, I was happy to hear that you were participating in the TAM wellness virtual stuff. Both my kids went through the peer resource program over at TAM, and I really like to see that matriculation and that communication or articulation, I think it is, between our middle school campus and the high schools that the students are going to go to, so that there's a sense of continuation. And it's great for middle school parents to have exposure to what's going on in the high school with respect to wellness and all of that kind of stuff. So that's a great series of movies, and I'm glad that you're connected up to it. Actually, my son is in the Angst movie. He was interviewed and he's a part of the film. So it was a great process for him too.
yeah.
So glad we're connected that way.
Yeah. And another thing that Eric didn't mention, but that he's working on this year too, is around suicide prevention. And so the Novato School District is hosting a parent event, and Eric sent that out to all families. It's going to be hosted on September 30th. And so there's going to be more work that we're doing as a district around that effort, because it's not ever to lose a person to suicide. And so to make sure that students have the supports that they need at home and in schools to recognize the signs, as well as to get the support that they need, so they don't find that as a method to handle whatever stresses and situations they're finding themselves in. They got to know there's support out there. All righty, and with that, I think we're ready to move on to future board topics.
Future board topics, meeting debrief. Before we do we're not doing a motion to continue past 10:30 for sure, but this is our last virtual meeting. We will all be in person in October, which is exciting, but we all have to stop wearing our pajamas, and but really looking forward to seeing everyone in person, seeing heads nodding and all of facial expressions, as well as our community in person, and moving in that direction. So with that in mind, is there anything anyone wants to share? I was talking to Marcy earlier today about, we will still have audio visuals in the room. So when we have presentations going, we'll be able to see those presentations live while we're there. People at home will still be able to see those presentations and listen to the audio, just like they are right now. So it will incorporate that for people who either can't or are unable to be with us in person. So we will be doing a bit of a transition. There may be some bumps along the way and learning as we get all back together in person in this new environment. But is there any other thoughts that you all have in terms of future board topics, meeting debrief, anything like that? Any requests for when we go in person? And if not now, you can always get in touch with Marcy or I before the next meeting. Hearing nothing, I'm looking forward to getting rid of those silent pauses while we wait to see if somebody has something to say. We'll move it along because we'll all be in person. We can nod our heads. Great, then let's go ahead and we will adjourn the meeting then. It is 9:15 and our last virtual meeting is adjourned.
In person next time.
All right.
At 9:16.
At 9:16.
16. Very
We
good.
are adjourned. Stop the
All righty.
recording.
Okay, so the meeting is adjourned. I will stop recording now.